be brave if you're brave. I'll be brave, but only if you're brave. And it could be just you and me. We'll be family. Just wait and see. So I will fight if you'll fight. Yeah, I will fight, but only if you'll fight. Oh, we can make it through this like sailors in a tempest. Like sailors in a tempest together. And it could be just you and me. We'll be family. Just wait and see.
It just started.
Welcome to those of you who are able to join us tonight. I'm Andrea Parks, Chief Development Officer of GoTo Foundation, and I am standing in for Danielle Hicks, our Chief Patient Officer, who is away and not able to guide us through this important conversation as she so does every month. Danielle is my sister. For those of you who don't know, Bonnie is also my mom, who is also joining us remotely and helping guide the conversation. For those who aren't familiar with our Living Room program, it is a support and education series created specifically with patients and caregivers in mind, with the aim of facilitating educational talks from key opinion leaders in a format and in a language that the layperson can understand. We know that people watching tonight come from around the globe and consist of people who may be at risk, living with varying types of lung cancer, and are undergoing various types of care and caring for somebody who has been impacted by this disease. Whether you're a non-small cell or small cell patient, an early or late stage patient, on targeted therapy, immunotherapy, or chemotherapy, in remission or have relapsed, we are here for you, and we believe wholeheartedly that the educated and empowered patients do better. Joining me tonight is our President and CEO, Lori Ambrose. We're thrilled that she is joining us live, not just as a viewer from Washington, D.C., but as moderator. Lori, let me turn to you to kick off our program. Thank you.
Andi, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and as you just said, I'm usually on the other side of this video, watching intently and listening. So it's very humbling to be able to speak with you tonight, and I will be channeling Danielle the whole time, and hoping that we can do the same job that she does with Bonnie every month for the patients that are listening and watching locally and around the globe. November's Lung Cancer Awareness Month. I'm sure there's not a person on this line that isn't aware of that. And it's very exciting. As just a sidebar, I had just gotten off the phone a little bit ago. We've been working very hard to bring national attention to our community through resolutions that Congress enacts to bring greater attention to disease states. And November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. We'll see congressional action approving a resolution that acknowledges that and calls us all to think about how we can bring earlier detection and increase treatment research and just a community strong sense of purpose around our work. So do stay tuned, because we will likely see a formal passage of a resolution acknowledging this for our community in these days ahead. But it's more than that. In November, we also honor veterans who have served our country and just sacrificed so much for us. And that is why we thought tonight's program, our living room, should focus on this very special, underserved, and even vulnerable community that is near and dear to our hearts. We will hear how the VA itself is standing up its lung cancer screening and treatment programs within its medical network, but you will also hear how GoTo Foundation now with an established and formal partnership with the VA, is supporting that effort and providing whatever educational, technical advice that we can, as well as working on access issues and leveraging our Centers of Excellence network for veterans who need care and support. There's lots to talk about. We couldn't be more excited to try to destigmatize some of the misnomers about what veterans need to know and maybe should expect regarding their screening and treatment and care, but also work to amplify tonight how we can guide those veterans who could be at risk to high quality screening and care near them. But most of all, we want everyone to know that we are here at GoTo Foundation to just support you, knowing that your life is our mission and that we will do whatever it takes, whatever the need to get it done together. So, as we like to say at GoTo, let's go to it and meet our panelists and dive into this wonderful conversation that will flow throughout this next hour. And I'm going to first turn to Dr. Drew Moghanaki to introduce himself and his extraordinary work that he has devoted. I will tell you, I don't think I have met someone who I've come to know so deeply and well and personally who cares more about his work, thinks 100% about the veterans community, and just lives and breathes how he can be helpful and supportive 24/7. And as a member of GoTo Scientific Leadership Board, it's just amazing to have you with us tonight, Drew, and to be able to talk about things that you are in the center of that is helping establish this new pathway forward for veterans at risk. So share a little bit about your background and how you came to be serving this community.
Sure. Thanks, Lori. It's been truly a treasure to be a part of this family. I think going on, 3 or 4 years now, maybe even longer. I've been in the VA for about 10 years. I am a radiation oncologist. I completed my training at the University of Pennsylvania over a dozen years ago and chose to work in the VA because of my fondness for our national healthcare system, the opportunities for research, and above and beyond all, incredible colleagues who are all generally rowing in the same direction with the same purpose to provide the highest quality of care we can for true Americans in this country who are patriotic and represent kind of what our population would look like if they were all to come together and be a part of trying to be part of something greater than themselves. Our veterans that I take care of, you can sense there's a brotherhood and a sisterhood amongst them. If you walk through a waiting room of a radiation oncology department at a VA versus a radiation oncology department at our academic affiliate, it's night and day. Our veterans are joking, they're telling stories, they're talking about their command units, they're talking about their sergeants that they liked or maybe didn't like. And our ability to work with them, I mean, it's a team. Our patients are often much more compliant. They show up. They rarely cancel, and it's just been a joy to work in the VA. And I've over the past decade, grown more and more into lung cancer research and advocacy, and I'm happy to share kind of everything I know as far as my career and what VA medical centers in general can have to offer veterans on this talk tonight.
Wonderful. Yay. Thank you, Drew. And Dr. Devika Das, thrilled that you could be with us and are coming to us from Birmingham, Alabama. But as a section chief of oncology at the Birmingham VA Medical Center, why don't you share with us as well your background and journey to UAB and certainly your work to support this veteran community?
Thank you so much for inviting me and for this opportunity. So I've worked at the Birmingham VA for about 4 years now. I trained at UAB and at the Birmingham VA as a resident and a fellow. And the clinic I had as a trainee oncologist at the Birmingham VA was probably the most fruitful and an experience that I could never forget. And I am grateful at this point that I get to give back by working as a thoracic oncologist there. I've also been a caregiver for family member with lung cancer, so having seen it from both sides, this is something I feel very passionate about. So I'm excited and grateful to be here today.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Das. And Julio, you made it. We were worried that you were not going to be able to connect with us, but there you are, and wonderful to see you. And glad that you can join us in this conversation. Share with those listening your story as an Army, retired U.S. Army veteran and lung cancer survivor.
Yes, thank you so much. I've been technically challenged this evening. I'm using my iPhone right now. I have all this high speed, $10,000 worth of computers, and I can't use them, but my old reliable iPhone finally came through. So it is my honor to be in your presence tonight. Thank you so much for allowing the opportunity to share my story. It's been a tough story. I know everyone that faces cancer in their life, it's a tough story. There is no better cancer than others, although lung cancer seems to be the worst of all. But I would like to start by saying that I proudly served my country for 28 years. I loved every minute of it. I'm a soldier for life, and this disease really has challenged me for the past year. I was diagnosed exactly a year ago, so I'm a 1 year survivor. I am so happy. I'm so thankful to God and everything else, and all the smart folks that have gotten me to this point. Because if you would have talked to me a year ago, I was a dead man walking. Um, I gave up. I wanted to die instantly. It was a devastating blow in my life. Never expected it. I've been in combat situations. I was a combat engineer, a construction engineer. I prepped for battle, never was scared. But when that oncologist took me in that office that one day a year ago and told me that I was diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer, it devastated my life. And to today, I still battle with that diagnosis and acceptance. But once again, I thank God and all the people like yourself, your organization, the wonderful doctors like Dr. Drew. He's picked me up off the floor a couple of times. He's taken good care of me. And I'm just here to pay it forward, to tell the vets that there is hope out there. And we have great people. We're in great hands. There is a great system. Sometimes it's cumbersome to get things done. But if you're persistent and you're dedicated to your health and your life, and you want to live longer, and you want to spend more time with your loved ones, and help others, this is the way to do it. You just can't stay in a box by yourself and not go out there and help others. So once again, thank you for the opportunity to share my story. I was a non-smoker. I was in the best shape of my life a year ago. I was flying really high, was going to the gym 5 times a week, I mean, 3 times a week, exercising 5 times a week, doing all these wonderful things, unbeatable. And then one day I was shot down by a missile. I was misdiagnosed. I was having right shoulder pain on my back. And due to the fact that I was in pretty decent shape, my PCM, when I went to the VA, they said, "Oh, there's nothing. It's just you got something wrong. You could pull the muscle, your shoulder blade, maybe your ribs, you overworked yourself." And this went on for about 10 months. Till one day I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go into my pulmonologist. He took a scan and said, "Man, your pleura is full of fluid. Well, you got a problem here." And that's when the whole stuff came out, the monster came out. And but once again, there's so many resources out here to get you through that battle. I was never prepared, and once again, I thank God and all of you that are doing the research. And but my main point is to advocate for early screening. I know everyone's on that bandwagon right now, but lung cancer has a bad stigma. We're not really fully funded like we should be, and more people die from lung cancer every year. 135,000 plus, more than all the cancers put together. And I don't have to tell the smart folks that, but I didn't know any of this. I was just totally in the dark, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm blessed. I have a lot to live for, and I live, the old cliche day to day. So thank you again. I don't want to take all your time, but I'm here to help the best I can.
Oh, Julio, I just have goosebumps. Just your story is so inspirational, and just your sharing it, and to those that are listening, is the hope and the sense of resilience that they need to hear. So you are paying it forward by just being here and just sharing the story in the way that you are, and offering the kind of real um, real personal experiences that so many others actually are going through and are saying at this moment, I am sure, oh my gosh, I can relate to that, and look at you thriving and motivating. So it's powerful, Julio, and we're going to talk more about this and the experience and advice that you can be giving others that are watching. Um, Drew, if I can turn back to you, though, because what Julio was touching on is something very interesting, and I do want to talk about the VA system itself, but um, what is driving higher incidence and higher mortality in our military, our veteran population, than the civilian population? Maybe you could speak to that a little bit, and particularly someone who experiences this as a non-smoker.
Yeah, so I do have a background in epidemiology, and which helps me realize how difficult it is to measure these sorts of things with regards to, do we truly have a higher incidence among veterans, and what is it? There's so many confounding factors, but in general, what's important to know is that when a soldier signs up for service, they, in the past, more so than today, were likely exposed to chemicals and toxins that we just weren't aware of their carcinogenic effects. Whether if it's working around ammunitions, whether if it's using materials to paint or strip fighter planes, whether if it's cleaning supplies in an aircraft carrier, whether if it's combusted materials in a field of battle, and of course, as we've increasingly hearing about these days, whether if it's inhaling uh, dark black smoke coming out of a huge burn pit where they're just throwing all sorts of junk in the desert that it's going to be cheaper to burn than to bring back to the states, including tires, human waste, canvas, buckets of chemicals, bleach. The fumes coming out would be colorful, not just black or gray. And even trucks and Humvee vehicles were pushed into these burn pits and just ablaze. And I've met veterans who just were downstream from the smoke, just inhaling this material. So this is from conventional, service. But of course, we know from the late 1960s through early 70s in Vietnam, plane after plane just dumping barrels of orange powder. I've met pilots who inhaled the backwind of the orange powder that came back into the cockpit, and they describe it being in their hair and in their teeth and their eyes. And we know that these things are carcinogenic. We're still cleaning these things up in other countries. And, the Institute of Medicine has done reports on this, but I've read actually the 2,000-page Institute of Medicine book that was prepared for our government to evaluate whether having served in Vietnam, you should be automatically have a presumptive diagnosis for malignancies, and a very long list of malignancies. If you ever even step foot in Vietnam, the VA generally will recognize your benefits for healthcare for that. So this is just some of the factors I think why our veterans they lived around different chemicals than non-veterans have.
Um, Thank you, Drew. That is so helpful, and I know that there are departmental responses that you've just mentioned, as well as government activities and policies that are evolving to try to look at how care and the system can continue to adapt and manage and support veterans who would find themselves with such diagnoses. And maybe what you could do is just amplify a little bit about the VA system at this time and how it really is ramping up its activity, its focus on, as Julio is saying, the early detection of lung cancer and then its downstream treatment.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for me to clarify. I'm not on the policy side of the house in the VA. I'm just a physician who works at a VA. I've trained at a few different VAs, the Nashville VA when I was a medical student at Vanderbilt, and then in Philadelphia, and I was in Richmond, Virginia, and now I'm in Atlanta. But along this journey, I've learned a lot, and of course, I read a lot, and there's so much publicly available information about all of this, and there's just a lot of commitment that I've seen that the VA has had towards lung cancer. If you go back into historical archives, back in the 1930s, the VA was one of the first government agencies involved with helping to understand that smoking is associated with lung cancer. And then in the 1950s, the VA was the first entity to do a large lung screening trial with sputum collection and chest x-rays. It was a very simple study, but it provided the evidence base for where we are today, 40, 50, 60 years later, when the National Lung Screening Trial showed that early detection mattered. And along the way, there's been all sorts of people who work at the VA and the research side and the health service side, on the clinical side, who have continued to use VA resources to keep studying lung cancer. And the VA really hasn't given up on this. And I think it's just often silent in the public eye as far as what it's been doing. But in the last 10 years, for example, it's done some tremendous work, largely because of advocacy by people like yourself, Lori. The VA launched one of the earliest demonstration projects to see if it could screen all veterans across the country. So the New England Journal paper that showed that screening saves lives was published in 2011. By 2012, authorizations were being made to do a implementation assessment. At the same time, the VA collaborated with the NIH and the Department of Defense to create a proteomics project called the Apollo Project. It then funded a clinical research trial that I'm involved in, which is looking at early stage disease, whether a surgical lobectomy is really superior to stereotactic radiation. And just this past week, they announced an effort to develop a large network of up to 18 VA medical centers that are part of a national project called the Lung Cancer Precision Oncology Program that boosts lung screening even more than activities that are ongoing right now, and also make sure that the highest quality clinical trials are available to veterans who are seeking care at these facilities. But above and beyond that, the VA has some of the largest data banks for biorepositories and biomarker testing. It has what's called the National Precision Oncology Program, and this Lung Precision Oncology Program is going to be gathering even more information to inform that database, so that the VA now is actually leading, cancer care and research and development. We often hear about the accolades of large name academic centers, up in Boston or Baltimore or San Francisco or Los Angeles. But at the end of the day, the VA can do projects that are much, much bigger scale just because of the sheer numbers of veterans that we have. We've got about 5,000 plus veterans diagnosed with lung cancer every year who receive their care in the healthcare system. And I would just like to highlight real quick, the VA is a huge monster. It has a budget that's growing, seems like a year by year, over $200 billion in annual funding. That's billion with a B. And every October, it gets that reappropriation from Congress, usually without much delay. And it has three different agencies. It has a benefit side, it has a cemetery side, manages Arlington and a bunch of beautiful cemeteries all across the country. But then it's got this third wing, which is the healthcare. And we estimate about 20 million veterans are alive in the U.S. today, but only about 9 million of them are accessing the healthcare side of the house. So when I say about 5,000 veterans are diagnosed with lung cancer, those are just the ones who are diagnosed with lung cancer in the VA. there's probably more than 10,000 veterans at large in this country who are diagnosed with lung cancer year after year after year. We definitely need to do some more studies, elegant studies, to see if we're seeing more lung cancer in non-smokers, in veterans versus non-veterans. But we're definitely seeing non-smoker veterans who haven't smoked, like Julio, who are unfortunately diagnosed with stage 4 disease at time of diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting, and I know Dr. Doss, you're working not very far from Atlanta and Drew in Alabama, but talk with us about your practice. How are you managing your outreach, your connection to the community, and the services that you're providing there?
So I'm a medical oncologist, and I have an additional background in healthcare quality and safety. So a lot of my work is focused on not just providing the highest quality of lung cancer care, but making sure that care is equitable and accessible and safe and available across the board, especially in a state like Alabama, where there's a lot of disparities in terms of distance and socioeconomic barriers and lots of other issues that we tackle every day. But I think working at the VA I have the support system that I need to make all of this work. I feel like I work in a great network. In sort of, it's all under one umbrella, but in terms of having primary care, having access to a lung cancer navigator for every patient that has a new suspected lung cancer. I have my own social worker. I have access to supportive care services, all under one roof, to say, without having to send my patients to multiple different places for workup. So I think one of the things that really works out for veterans in my practice is they get all the care under one roof. They are able to get that care fairly quickly. If they have a VA close to them, we take care of them, and all of my staff and all of my physicians are academic oncologists who also practice at UAB, which is our academic affiliate. So we get all access to, all the newer techniques, all the training. So we provide the same standard of care that they would get at a tertiary care center at the VA, which I think is something that is not often known to a lot of veterans out there. Another thing that I feel is a great part of my practice is working as a VA oncologist is my patients have access to all the FDA-approved therapies without having the additional barrier of financial toxicity that goes with lung cancer and, in general, any cancer therapies these days. So we see a lot of patients, even though they have secondary insurance or other insurance, come back to the VA, and I'm happy and I'm excited that I'm able to provide them the therapies that they need without their families having to go through all the trouble that you go through as a provider and as a caregiver, with the costs that are associated with treatment, which I think is an amazing part of working with the VA system.
Boy, is that just music to so many people's ears on several fronts, that your focus is with a multidisciplinary team that includes nurses and social workers, because they are as important to all of this, and even care coordinators in that respect. As an oncologist is, as a radiation oncologist, as Drew is, that is just, it's essential to ensuring that people are navigated in that individualized, personalized way. That multidisciplinary touch point is absolutely central to that. But you're also touching on information that, and I just literally, the purpose of the living room is to try to inform and to help guide, those who would not even know this, have this information available. So how are you trying to communicate these very important services and opportunities to those who would benefit from this?
I think a lot of the information and all the services that we have, I know some of these services are not standardized across the board, so different VAs have different flavors of this, but most of everything that touched upon is available at the VA. Once the veteran is plugged into the VA system through their primary care provider, all of this is available to them under the same system. So they don't really have to go to another clinic, another building. It's all in the same healthcare system. The records are available. I don't have to go digging for or asking for records from another place. But we could probably do better with disseminating this information in terms of what's available at the VA. But I think that's where opportunities like this, where we get to come and talk as physicians and providers about
Right.
all the wonderful things we have at the VA, I think is incredibly helpful. And I know a lot of our patients, they speak for our care. It's a lot of word of mouth, and I love having that relationship with my patients where they will go tell other veterans about what wonderful care they got at the Birmingham VA, and that they recommend that their friend or somebody who was with them come see us at the VA. We have, like I said, it's a comprehensive care all the way from being screened to getting their diagnosis. We have a wonderfully established lung mass clinic. We have just everything that we need to take our veteran through the entire journey, which is a very difficult journey, being diagnosed with lung cancer, making sure that we're there with them every step of the way, from screening to diagnosis, treatment, and whatever comes after that in terms of supportive care.
Yeah, yeah. Julio, if I could ask you, as you've gone through your journey, how did you encounter barriers that if you were thinking through this, that organizations like ourselves and even the department itself need to think about and fix? I mean, tell us about how you gathered your information, and if you found through the system one that was fully supportive, or are there things we can do to continue to refine and continue to help vets access information and access care?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question because I was in a unique situation where I'm located at Fort Benning, Georgia, and my nearest major VA medical oncology, it's Birmingham or Atlanta. So that would be probably an hour and a half to 2 hour drive one way to get those services through the VA. But fortunately, one of the barriers was the fact that I felt like I was by myself in an island, holding
Mm-hmm.
this big bucket full of stuff, and I didn't know
Yeah.
what to do with it. And I do have a PCM here locally, but they're not really prepared or knowledgeable to handle those things. Like I was telling you, I was misdiagnosed for 10 months
Mm-hmm.
before I was identified as having lung cancer. So to me, it was overwhelming because I spent a lot of time on the phone trying to figure out, how am I going to get help? And, I went through the referral process and all that. But thank God, the VA has a community care program which allows it allows vets to seek their own medical professionals nearby to provide medical care for them, and the VA pays 100%. So,
Mm-hmm.
once I found out that I could do that, it facilitated me to go but I had to do my own research. I had to, where's the nearest civilian cancer center? What is a good doctor? Because when you get diagnosed with this life sentence, death sentence, I call it now, but it's a life sentence now, but at the beginning it was a death sentence. You're like, I've got to get the best doctor I can to figure this thing out and move forward and get the best medical care and treatment so I can live longer. And that's what you totally focus on. But I I I feel lucky that we have this community care program that helped me a lot, and I was able to connect with a doctor locally here at the John B. Amos Cancer Center, which is
Mm-hmm.
fairly decent center, but it's nothing like Birmingham or Atlanta and Emory and those big fancy places. But it also, the other good part about the VA is you can get a second opinion. So even if you go to a civilian doctor, you can go somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else to get a second opinion, and the VA will pay for that. Pay for all the testing, everything. and this way you figure out what is going to be your best standard of care for what you're being identified as having, and what's going to work for you. But it's a very difficult process, because I was not fortunate to live in Atlanta and have the capabilities to go to a nice center, where Dr. Drew runs his show. Uh, but here it's a lot different for a vet, and I could not connect with a vet that had the disease that I had. I mean, it was just I was on my own, and then I was having
Yeah.
some serious problems mentally that I couldn't even pick up the phone. I couldn't think straight. It's just so that those were the challenges that I faced up front, and also the stigma. Once everybody found out, oh man, you got lung cancer, stage 4, man, you're a dead man. Everybody looks at you like you did it to yourself, or I mean, it's just a bad stigma. It was a bad experience, to say the least. But once again, once you get your bearings and you find out that there's ways for you to make yourself better, and obviously my family had a lot to do with it. My wife, she's my rock. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't even be talking to you today. I honestly think I wouldn't be alive today. So, we're tough guys, and as vets, and we take a lot of stuff, but there's a point in time in your life where you need to reach out and get all the help you can. Um, so I started getting connected with the Go-To Foundation. I started educating myself. The internet can be dangerous. Every time I opened the internet and looked at my disease, I was going to die next week. So, I stopped doing that. And but the best advice I can say is, you have to you have to get a grip of yourself, educate yourself, find an organization that you feel comfortable communicating with. Uh, Once again, the Go-To Foundation got me to the next level, hooked me up with a person they call a battle buddy, uh, that you can that's has the same disease, kind of sort of the same treatment you've been uh, uh, set up for, and they're a couple of years ahead of you, so you can chat with them. You can uh, get lessons learned, ask questions, and just educating yourself. It's beneficial to your health. Just in a nutshell.
Julio, you even mentioned, even the tough guys need some help. And I know when my mom was diagnosed, she was she was a tough one in the family. So it's at times it's very hard to accept help, but it is so important, and it's something that we educate everyone who is diagnosed to have that person who can be there and encourage them and help them take in this massive dose of information that you're just now learning. So even the tough guys, I like that, need help. I like that.
I know it. The way you're sharing this, Julio, just again, it is, it shows strength and courage and acknowledging vulnerability, that so few feel that they want to be able to, to highlight, but it also shows, that you're, again, this word of hope, we can be hopeful now in a way that we probably couldn't have been 20 years ago. And we use the term silver linings often to really look at what can be a dark cloud that certainly now for our community has very, very strong silver linings. When you look at the opportunity now to screen for the disease at the earliest stages, where you can treat, where you can manage it and even be cured from it, the number of drugs that have been approved and the new therapies in the last 5 years versus the last 50 years, it's extraordinary how we are developing more targeted and personalized strategies and innovative, even surgical techniques and radiological techniques that are advancing survivorship. And it all comes down to a sense of community for you as a patient and for those that are giving care to you as well. They're all a part of this, and just finding a place to know that there's hope, there's resilience, there's opportunities, because you should never have anyone say, "No, nothing you can do. Go home and get your things in order." There's not going to. We shouldn't be accepting that at this day and age for our community. So, but Drew, it is interesting. There are some new initiatives within the VA that are really looking at how to improve this system-wide management. You've been at the center of these. They're very exciting studies, whether it's through VA PALS, a Valor study, and other initiatives that are being launched. And if you want to touch on those so that the veteran community knows what the VA is doing to even ramp up its efforts beyond the many that you've just laid out.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of amplify some of the things that were said so far, because that speaks to what you're discussing, Lori. First of all, I just got to say, Julio, I'm so glad you pulled yourself out of that dark place that, this disease takes people to. Otherwise, we would have never met. And I'll tell you, our handful of conversations that we have had have always lifted me up. I often talk to my colleagues who are clinicians, and I ask them, have you ever talked to a patient with metastatic lung cancer outside of the clinic? And it's unbelievable. So few of us have. And until I got involved with this organization and getting out and involved with advocacy and meeting people like you, Julio, it was just, I don't want to say business as usual, but it's very different, because in a clinic room, the patient's in a different kind of setting, because there's a power imbalance, right? As much as we don't wear a white coat, I stop wearing a tie, try to, be a pal, it's not the same, even though veterans are very different. When I see a veteran at the VA, it's a lot different than when I see a veteran at Emory. When they're in the VA, I feel like, they just look me in the eye, and I look at them like, why are you looking at me so much? And I finally figured it out after a decade, because the veteran's looking at me like, hey, buddy, this is my house that you're in. I'm the visitor in this appointment. So with that said, because of that commitment, the VA is really there to serve all the veterans that have access to health. The doors are open. Whatever Congress authorizes, we'll get patients, their approvals to get healthcare in the VA. We have lots of resources at the 170 plus medical centers, but we've got over 1,000 clinics, and as you know, down by where you live, Julio, and where a lot of other veterans live, there isn't a big box hospital with operating rooms and emergency room and all those things. And we now have the authority to leverage community care to get people out into the community. And, the big box VAs are still there. If you, for example, aren't getting biomarker testing, you could just contact Dr. Doss, and she'll make sure your sample gets sent to the VA National Precision Oncology Program. And that's one of the initiatives I think that we should all be aware of. I mean, assembling one of the largest databases of tissue samples with Foundation Medicine testing and other, biomarker testing. And you may say, well, there's other academic centers that do this as well. But veterans stay in the healthcare system usually all the way through their entire journey. And so the database is much more robust. You don't have missing pieces of data where some civilian was at a community hospital, got upset at their doctor, and left. And then when you go back and look at those research data, it's not robust enough to really make any meaningful analysis. So you've got this National Precision Oncology Program of the VA, which is an incredible gem in the cancer research realm that the VA is managing. So that's one big initiative. We've got this other initiative that, Julio, I don't know if you haven't signed up for, I strongly encourage you to do so, and all veterans are on this call, called the Million Veterans Program, the MVP. The VA is literally collecting blood on 1 million veteran and healthcare enrollees. And the more veteran MVP enrollees that have cancer, the larger data set. So we'll have tissue that has their biomarker of the cancer, and then we'll have their blood that says these are the genes that they were born with. and we can go back and kind of really untangle this genetic mess regarding, was it a chemical induced cancer or was it a genetic predisposition to cancer? We know from the 1940s that from mouse models of cancers behave differently. You take a mouse and you pump it with a lot of toxic chemicals, that cancer behaves very differently. This is the stuff I was studying when I was a medical student doing a fellowship through the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. And then there's other mice where you can genetically modify it, and those cancer blossom and behave completely differently as well. So the MVP of the VA is really going to help us untangle a lot of the mysteries of this awful, awful disease. So those are two big initiatives. The other ones, we've got this VA partnership to increase access to lung screening, which received a very generous gift from the BMSF, the Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation, through the VA Secretary's Office. That's helped stand up 15 medical centers in the VA with structured screening programs similar to how GoTo has those programs. Dr. Doss and I both are two of the 15 VA PALS sites operating on this. And as I mentioned, this new precision oncology program that's ongoing, it was just announced last week and is going to be standing up more precision directed cancer trials. But I do want to, before we run out of time, point out that, this memorandum of agreement with the highest ranking official in the Veterans Health Administration, Dr. Richard Stone, signed with you, Lori, opens up this door now for even more expertise to be at the table. So as I've tried to point out, the VA is this huge machine. There's a lot of activities in lung cancer screening and care and research and partnering with community for increasing community engagement. But now, GoTo is able to help veterans like Julio. Let's say Julio knows 5 or 6 of his colleagues who are at risk for lung cancer. And the VA estimates about 900,000 veterans, at least, who are registered with the VA. So about 1 in 10 are at risk for lung cancer and should be screened. And there might not be a low-dose CT scanner close to Julio that's convenient. He's working a full-time job. He's not going to drive all the way to Atlanta to get a screening scan. And this is where, if there's GoTo center designated screening centers, this is fantastic to get more and more veterans screened so that we don't leave any veteran behind. And then, of course, we've got our cancer care continuum, centers that we can help veterans identify, where should I go? Julio earlier mentioned he's got cancer. The VA's too far. He wants to go in the community. The VA says, sure, we'll give you an authorization. But the nice people who he was talking to, community care, they're not cancer specialists. They're not lung cancer specialists. Julio and I hadn't met. If so, he would have called me on my cell phone, and I would have told him, hey, here, let me call some friends and find out where a good place to go is. But now, this would be fantastic if there's just some go-to resource that veterans can go to find out where to go for their treatment. I'll tell you, this GoTo name is still it just keeps growing on me every month. This would be fantastic, so that when they go in the community under a VA authorization, they at least can have some information to make a good decision about where they go. Lots of things going on.
Drew, I know it. It's so wonderfully said. And at the end of the day, it is about making sure that veterans have information that they need, know that there's a community that surrounds them and cares for them, and knowing that there are options, and that if you could be at risk, where to go, what to ask, what to expect. If you are diagnosed, how to navigate that treatment pathway that suits you as the individual that you are in the most personalized way. And that's what we are, our goal is in working with the VA and in this partnership, is to make sure that the veterans have what they need. No different than civilian population that we work with.
I'd love to highlight one of the earliest things that we worked on, Lori, after the agreement was signed. So GoTo Foundation has a hotline, right? Veterans call, they have questions, and your staff has done the best that they can to answer the questions. Well, when we reviewed some of the questions and answers, we realized, wow, there was a lot more information that could be provided to veterans. And so this sort of partnership, I just want to highlight how important and valuable partnerships are, where we were able to, get some people to look at your script so that when veterans ask questions, we can give them more precise information, guide them to the right place so they're not just lost, not knowing where to go. Because as Julio pointed out, it can be complicated. But if you have a buddy to guide you through there, and if GoTo can help with some of that bandwidth of communicating, especially with veterans who don't have health benefits just yet. A lot of veterans are walking around who are eligible, but they just don't know. And if GoTo can help them get eligible, that would be fantastic, so that they have more options and more resources to get their care, and God forbid, not go bankrupt from lung cancer.
Yeah, yeah. So, Dr. Doss, and it's a question really to all of you. If you are a veteran that's listening to this, what I should say, the veterans who are listening to this, what advice would you be giving them? What would we want them to know from your standpoint?
I think a lot of what's already been said before, that the VA is committed and there is a strong team of people just across the spectrum within the VA system that want to take care of you and want to make sure that you get provided the state of the art care, everything that's accessible to any patient with lung cancer if they were not in the system. So, we've heard about some of the challenges and barriers and not knowing exactly what to do, where to go. But I think the key point is to continue to ask questions, continue to communicate. If you know you could be eligible for benefits, to make sure you go ahead and get those benefits. You can choose not to get care at the VA down the line if that is something that's not best suited for you. But knowing that within this healthcare system, there are resources that are invaluable, things that, again, we talked about some of that, the financial toxicity that's associated with care, having all your care available within one roof, all the way from screening to supportive care services, having medications, having access to social work, mental health support that you need. And something that is not very visible is a lot of the physicians and the staff members that work at a VA also have specializations and work in academic centers. So essentially, you're getting the same level of care you would get at an academic center. We make sure of that, and that is something that we take pride in. So don't dismiss the VA. Give us a chance. There's a lot of us who choose to work at the VA because we believe in the mission, and we really enjoy taking care of veterans.
So Julio had mentioned that he was a couple hours away from the nearest VAs, one in Atlanta and one in Birmingham. How do these veterans know that they have an opportunity to go and visit community centers that you guys have partnerships with? Are they told that right off the bat? Julio, how did you find out that you didn't have to travel an hour and a half, 2 hours?
My PCM gave me the options of either going to she said you could go Birmingham, Emory, or Atlanta VA, which is kind of a triangle. It's all the same distance. So I had the option to select where I wanted to go, which is great. It was not force fed to me when I received the referral from my PCM. So once again, there's some great people. I know, like Dr. Drew kept saying, this is a big machine, and sometimes you feel like you're lost in it. But once you get connected, I think everyone has great intentions to get you the best medical care available, and it's up to you. You like you said earlier, you could decide to go to a civilian doctor or whatever, or go to a name brand hospital, but you're still going to get the best medical care that you want to get, because you're going to have to make that decision. Do I want to go to Birmingham? Do I want to go to Columbus here, 5-10 minutes away? Do I want to drive, 4 hours to Emory, back and forth? Those are choices that you have to make. What you feel comfortable with, how you communicate with the oncologist, how that relationship, do you trust what's going on? But the good thing is there is, I guess I had a bad impression or thought that, I was just going to be a number, and, people were just going to push me through the system and throw me out later on. But I found out that there is some people that are very special that do this line of work that I would not want to be. I wouldn't want to be an oncologist. I don't think I could do that. I'd rather go out and look for bad guys and bad girls. But they're angels. They have a purpose in life, and I thank God for them.
I will say that as
I,
somebody
I,
who also quality and safety and work on process improvement. This is great feedback that we get from veterans about this whole process of, do I get care at the VA? Do I go to the community? And I will say that the VA has put in some effort. I'm part of a study that's looking at our existing community care service, how that's working, what are things that we could do to make that process more seamless for our veterans, and really doing a quality check on the places that we send our patients, VA and otherwise, to see if our veterans are getting the same quality of care across the spectrum. So the VA is investing in looking at that. So it's not just a process that's in place, it's something that we're looking to constantly improve upon.
Mm-hmm.
that's
Fantastic.
I
wonderful.
know we're getting. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead,
would just
Drew.
add one last
Finish.
thing, Lori. Yeah, just one
Yeah.
last thing to build on that. I think a closing comment would be that, the VA is happy to help be at the center of any veteran's care. We have some of the best telehealth systems in the country. We can go across state lines. You can get access to a lung cancer specialist if you would like. And, for example, if Julio wanted to get a second opinion from Birmingham or Atlanta, he wouldn't have to drive. We could set up a video conference and quickly review his records and do all that, and then help guide, any recommendations that he wants through telehealth as well.
Wonderful. We could talk about these opportunities, advice to give, ways to think about this, how to connect with those that are really there to be helpful and supportive in every way. I just want anyone listening and everyone listening to know, please, if you are wondering if you should be screened, if you are having treatment, need more questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Go-To Foundation and certainly to a VA center that's close to you. We want to be there to support you and help you because we know we have the opportunity to save your life and improve the quality of it. And that's what we are here as we say, your life is our mission together as a partnership. To be continued. And Andi, I know that you have some closing remarks, so let me turn this back to you and to say thank you to all of the panelists who took time to be with us tonight and share their incredible stories and the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Lori.
so much for giving me the opportunity.
Julio, you're going to have many, many more opportunities after this, this live program. We need
Hey,
thousands of.
One final note to all my war fighters, all my vets: you're not alone. There's some great people out there to help you. Thank you.
That's awesome. See, once a veteran, always once a military enrollee. This guy, he keeps serving, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
He wants to serve again.
I'm definitely not kidding you when you're going to be getting a lot of requests after tonight. But we need more people like you. So thank you for taking the time to come and tell your story tonight. A couple things. Lori did touch on this. If any of you know a veteran or know one that is at risk or has been diagnosed, please let them reach out and tell them to reach out to support@gotofoundation.org. We have a great team on staff that are willing and able and ready to help anyone. Another item to bring up, Bonnie Addario has pre-launched her book, a book. It's called The Living Room, A Lung Cancer Community of Courage. It highlights 22 patients and it's now available for pre-orders on Amazon. Our next living room, our final one of the year, is on December 15th, third Tuesday of the month at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. Let's see. Latest news and most recent joint statement on COVID and lung cancer is also on gotofoundation.org. Kind of a hot topic as we speak. Also, very important, please consider logging into lungcancerregistry.com and participating in our lung cancer registry. It's very much appreciated, and so much valuable information are coming out of that. Again, thank you to all the panelists, all of you watching live or post live, and Peninsula Television. They're the ones that make this happen. To our supporters, we definitely acknowledge that we would not be able to put on this living room without supporters, our industry supporters: Amgen, AstraZeneca, Boehringer Ingelheim, Bristol Myers Squibb, Foundation Medicine, Genentech, Jazz Pharmaceuticals, Lilly, Merck, Novartis, and Takeda. Your support has let us educate thousands of patients and caregivers and loved ones. So thank you. And I think that's it. Great. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you
All right,
all.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.